Okay, and we'll get started. Just a couple of etiquette things, our Zoom etiquette. Please make sure that you remain on mute during the course of this presentation. We'll be talking about the grant narrative for Creative Corps Inland SoCal for the request for proposal, or the RFP. Any questions that you have tonight, please go ahead and hold those. You can even put them in the chat if you would like. And our speaker will address them at the end of the presentation. We want to make sure that she can get through all the important parts for today and then leave time for your questions at the end. Our speaker tonight is Janai Moorhead. She is a nonprofit consultant and has worked in the nonprofit field for over 25 years. She is a university instructor that teaches nonprofit studies and business courses. And you can find her on social media and YouTube by searching for Janai Moorhead, and I'll put that in the chat so that you have her name spelled correctly. She helps to start, develop, and manage nonprofits all over the country, and she is pleased to be here with you today. So if you can give her all of your attention, Janai, you can take it from here.
Thank you so much, Kristen and Mariella. I appreciate all of you who are on Zoom for this training or this workshop, technical assistance workshop. And I am going to start out by saying good evening, and thanks for the introduction. I want to start out, if you have not gone to the Inland Empire Community Foundation and registered with an account so that you can access the grant, please do so. And when you get into the front page, you'll see there are 4 grants, and the 2 at the bottom are the grants, the Creative Corps grants. So I have, is my screen sharing right now? Okay, can you share my screen? Or maybe I should share my screen. Hold on. Okay, I don't see those controls.
Let me see if I make you the host. You are the co-host.
Yes, Let me find those. Let me see if I can find those. Yeah, I don't see anything. Oh, hold on. Ah, there we are. Okay, I will share my screen here. Okay, all right. Okay, all right. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, good to go.
All right, very good, very good. Okay, so right now I am in the Inland Empire Community Foundation site. And like I said, you should have made an account. You can make an account simply by going on the Inland Empire Community Foundation site, make your account, and then go to the nonprofits tab, hit grants, and then you will see, like I said, 4 grants at the on the front page. The first 2 are other community foundation grants, and then the last 2 are the Creative Corps Inland SoCal grants. And one is for nonprofits, and the other is for individuals. So right now, I have opened the grant application for the individual artist. And my style is to go over those things. And so right now I am going to just do a little bit of housekeeping here. In the right-hand corner where my little cursor is the actual question list for the individual artists. And so after I go over the guidelines, I'm going to go over the question list for the individual artist, and then I will go over to the nonprofit grant, and then also go over the question list. The question list is a little bit easier to handle while I'm online, just in case my online stuff gets unstable, then I can have that available. So let me save it here. And we'll come back to this one too. Now that you know where that is, I'm going to go to my guidelines and instructions. So this is extremely important to read because it tells you some very important things. And so I'm going to be going over it. As Kristen said, please hold your questions to the end, and I may be answering them along the way. So we first have the background, and then we have a little bit about Creative Corps Inland SoCal. And it's really important to understand the mind of the funder, the person who's giving you the money, in order to make sure that both of you are on the same page. Because later on, it's going to be asking you a few questions. And the grant application is going to be asking you a few questions. And if the answer is not on the same page as the funder, then I always say that funders give to what is of interest to them. And they're telling you, which we're going to go over, what is of interest to them. So it behooves you to pay close attention to that. Okay. So for the background, it just simply tells you that in 2021, the California state budget allocated a one-time statewide funding of $60 million to the California Arts Council to implement the Creative Corps. And this is the Creative Corps of Inland Southern California that will create jobs in arts and develop the infrastructure for California to engage more deeply in public work in a sustainable way. And then the Inland Empire Community Foundation was awarded $4.75 million of that grant from the California Arts Council to administer the California Creative Program in the Inland Empire. So we have a lot of partners involved. And so it's the state of California, it's the Creative Arts of SoCal, and then we have also the Inland Empire Community Foundation, okay? And the Inland Empire Community Foundation is the grants portal. So now a little bit about the Creative Corps Inland SoCal. All of these partners, the Inland Empire Community Foundation, IECF, Arts Connection. Yes, go ahead.
The screen isn't advancing with you.
Okay, let me look at my share. Okay. Now, hold on. Let me look at my share.
There we go.
Very good. My apologies. Okay. I'm only on the second one. Okay.
That's okay. Thank you so much.
No, not a problem. Thank you. Okay. So all of these partners, including the Community Foundation, Arts Connection, the Arts Council, San Bernardino County, Riverside Arts Council, and the California Desert Arts Council are coordinating regionally to regionally implement the statewide Creative Corps program. And then it is altogether named the Inland Creative Corps Inland SoCal. And this is really important here. It is primarily a media outreach and engagement campaign. And you'll hear that again, over and over again, about 2 or 3 times, that will support Inland SoCal artists, cultural practitioners, and nonprofits in new work to create awareness in 4 key areas. and pay attention to new work. And the 4 key areas are going to be repeated again. And anytime a funder repeats something, that's extremely important to them. The 4 key areas identified by the state: public health and pandemic recovery, water and energy conservation, disaster preparedness and recovery, civic engagement, and social justice. Okay, again, 4 key areas: public health and pandemic recovery, water and energy conservation, disaster preparedness and recovery, civic engagement, and social justice. The goal of the grant is to put artists, creatives, and culture bearers to work and service in the communities, fund projects and work that address one or more of the 4 key topics that were identified at the state level. Again, they're repeating it: public health and awareness and pandemic recovery, public awareness of environmental related issues such as water and energy conservation, climate mitigation and emergency preparedness, relief and recovery, and civic engagement and voter preparation, and social justice and community engagement. Now, here we go with a little bit of information that is crucial to the grant. You must serve communities in Quartile 1, which is the highest priority on the California Healthy Place Index map. So let's look at, let me see here. Okay, we'll look at the an index map, and then you also, some of the goals are to re-grant directly to artists and re-grant to organizations and agencies to hire artists. So let us look at the healthy places. I'm going to try to, I better not do that. I will just pull up a PDF or a JPEG of the map that I have here.
And Janai, let me do one thing. Can you make me a co-host so that I can allow people still into the room? I just realized
okay.
Giving
okay,
you the
you gave me all the power.
I gave you all the power.
Okay, all right. Okay, you're gonna have to help me.
Here, I'm gonna reclaim host, and then I'm going to make you host. My apologies, everyone. Sometimes technology gets the better of me. Okay, you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, all right. Somebody just, oh, somebody wants admittance. Okay, all right. So if you go to the link in the guidance, you will map. And when this is just a picture of the map, a screenshot of the map that I took of the areas. And here with my cursor, you are going to see here parts of, you can see San Bernardino County and Riverside County. And then way over here is
sorry, Janai, it's still stuck on just showing us where you clicked on inside your documents folder. It's not showing us the map. There it is.
Oh, all right, thank you. Okay. Just please remind me, because every time I move from place to place inside of my computer, then I need to click a different share. So, okay, gotcha. All right. So clicking the link for the California Healthy Places will take you to a site, and then it'll say, show the map. And when you look at the map, you can hone in different parts of California. And I brought the map into the San Bernardino and Riverside areas. So here we see the Inland Empire here, and then below it here, we'll see Riverside, Moreno Valley. And then, of course, to the east of us, we have the desert region, which Palm Springs, Palm Desert, and La Quinta is on my map and other places, okay? So then at a later point in the presentation, we'll talk more about zip codes, okay? So I think I'm gonna talk about that now, and then we'll hit on it. But as you can see, the unhealthiest places are in dark blue. And I was looking at some of them, and some of them I was raised in, so I'm very fortunate, okay? And some of us were raised in them to have lived a pretty healthy life, thanks to people like the health departments and things like that who give us nutrition services. Well, in this case, you as the artist or the nonprofit will be also helping these areas too. But it's important because if you are not listing a certain zip code in your grant, then you can apply. However, it will not be a priority, okay? So I just wanted to point out one little is that right here where my cursor is Loma Linda, and this is what we call a blue zone, and that's just off topic, but a blue zone, there are only 5 blue zones in the world, and Loma Linda happens to be one of them, where people are the healthiest and live the longest, mostly over 100 years old. So I always try to shop there also. So, okay, so let me take down that. And while we're on the map, I'm going to show you, because we are going to, I'm going to get back to the screen share window. Uh-oh. Okay. Later on, we'll cover this. We'll come across a form that is taking us to these zip codes, okay? Kristen, can you see this? Is it moving okay?
Yes, you're moving good.
Good, very good. Okay, all right. So there will be a link, and this link will give you steps to access information on the relative health of places in Riverside and San Bernardino County. However, on the second page, it starts giving you all of the zip codes that are in Quartile 1. Now, I do have a note here, and we are talking, let me see here. There's a note on Blythe, okay? And it says Blythe is not in the lowest quartile when you look up at the zip codes. But if you do change to the census tract search view, you can see there's a very light blue area in the middle of all the dark blue, and that light blue pushes it outside the 25 percentile. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to push it out of contention or consideration, I guess, but we're well aware that Blythe is incredibly underserved. And then also, let's see here. Yes, the other note I have is that the Quartile 1 is prioritized, but people from other zip codes are able to apply. They just not may receive priority. Okay, all right. Did I cover all that, Kristen?
You did. It's basically just talking about if you don't see an area on the zip codes that you know should be there, it may just be because there's a small area of it that's that has a little bit more resources and popped it outside of that 25th percentile. So really make sure that you're looking at the census tract area of the HPI in addition to the zip code, because you may still, it may be just outside of it, and it'll help strengthen your argument as to why your area should be involved in it.
Okay, very good. Okay, now I'm going to switch back over to my guidelines, and hopefully we can see that. Okay, and I'm going to scroll down here. There is a part about tribal commitment, and that we acknowledge that we are embarking on new work on unceded ancestral and traditional tribal lands, and we are committed to supporting our ongoing relationships with tribes and affirm intentions for creating ongoing relationships that honor the cultural and practices of Native communities, and to strengthen our awareness of historical and contemporary issues throughout this work. We do invite Native artists and cultural bearers into this work, and then it asks you to visit native-land.ca to find out more about on whose land you currently reside. And I am going to pull up, or you could just click the link, but what you will see when you click that link, let's see here. As soon as it pulls up, then I will share that too. All righty. So this is basically what you're going to see is an overlay of all the tribes, the tribal lands that overlay. It doesn't have the normal boundaries as we see them, but they are the boundaries of all the tribal lands. Okay, and so if you are a artist, a Native American, then you can look at this. If you're not sure, then you can look at the overlay here for reference. But you still have to use the Healthy Places Index also. Okay, let's go back to the guidelines. All right. Then for the grant, the applicants must demonstrate that programs, projects, services, and information and facilities where funded activities are to take place, including online spaces, will be accessible for individuals with disabilities, including but not, yes, ma'am. Oh,
it hasn't moved.
That share, okay, all right. Here we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So the accessibility, you heard me on that one. You just have to make sure that all the spaces that you are using, including online spaces, will be accessible for individuals with disabilities, including but not limited to individuals who are deaf, hard of hearing, deaf, blind, have difficulty speaking, have a physical disability, visual disability, developmental disability, learning disability, mental illness, or chronic illness. And then the DEI statement for the Creative Inland SoCal says that it is committed to ensuring the just and equitable disbursement of resources, bringing together stakeholders with different backgrounds and life experiences that will enhance our ability to increase opportunities for all arts services organizations, artists, culture bearers to succeed. And also engaging in a continual practice of listening, learning, and implementing. So here we go on the organizations who can apply the eligibility for organizations. You must be a nonprofit, public benefit organizations with evidence of tax exempt status under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code and not classified as a private foundation. And then also, if you are a fiscally sponsored organization, there's a different rule for that one. An applicant organization that is without nonprofit status must use a California-based fiscal sponsor with a federal 501c3 designation to apply for funding. And then fiscal sponsors have to have a minimum 2-year history of consistent engagement in arts programming and/or services prior to the application deadline. You have to submit your letter of agreement between the fiscal sponsor and the applicant organization, and it has to be signed by a representative from both parties and submitted with the application. If the grant is awarded, please understand that the fiscal sponsor becomes the legal contract holder with Inland Empire Community Foundation. And if I can add, if they are the fiscal sponsor, then the check will go to them. Also, local government units, municipalities, or tribal authority can apply, okay? Organizations that operate so that they do not discriminate in the hiring of staff or in providing services on the basis of race, religion, gender, sexual orientation, age, national origin, or disability. And your organization must be located and serve residents of Riverside County and/or San Bernardino County. For the individual artists, creatives, or culture bearers, practitioners, or individual artists applying on behalf of a collective. Now, let me explain. We'll probably go over this later, or may say down later, but a collective is a group of 3 artists or more. So let's go into this. You must be 18 years or older, residents rather of Riverside or San Bernardino County, and your proposed project work should take place in Riverside or San Bernardino County and serve a community in Quartile 1 on the Healthy Places Index. So there's a lot going on when you are choosing your project. It's you know, the project itself, whatever you're going to submit, and then you're going to have to decide, okay, all right, it has to be in this zip code area within San Bernardino or Riverside County, and you're going to be using the zip code list on the Healthy Places Index. Again, this is repeated, and remember I told you anything that's repeated is very important, that applicants must demonstrate strong, ongoing relationships with communities that fall within the lowest quartile of the California Healthy Places Index. So it may not be enough just to go there for the first time and say, okay, I can do a wonderful project here. But there's something in the, I believe there's a question in the grant application, which we'll go over, that you have to demonstrate a strong, ongoing relationship with the community, okay? It also says that communities that fall within the lowest quartile of the California Healthy Places Index and will support meaningful engagements with those communities. The HPA map uses indicators of health, economic circumstances, education, social factors to rank census tracts from the highest to the lowest in order of their impact as social drivers of health. And then on the, we went over this on the HPI map. They are shown in quartiles with dark blue representing quartile 1, indicating areas of the highest need on the Healthy Places map. This grant requires a focus on service to quartile 1, or the highest priority communities on the census tract version of the HPI map, which are represented in dark blue. So earlier, Kristen did say that you can also switch over to the census tract version, and you will see Blythe there also. And then if you click the link, or if you click the link, then you will see the quartile list of zip codes. Okay. So for the artistic, cultural, and creative disciplines, they've made a list. I'm sure it's a pretty extensive list, but these include the list of disciplines, rather, including performing arts, visual arts, media, theater, etc. And then it gives you a few of the definitions. And so I won't go through all of them, but they do include dance, literary art, media art, music, theater, traditional, cultural, and folk arts, visual arts, multimedia, social practice arts, culinary and culturally specific practices, and other creative processes. So if you do have questions on a discipline and you're not sure, then I would reach out to Kristen or the, is that right? Should they reach out to you, Kristen?
Absolutely. You can reach out to me, or you can attend any of our virtual office hours. If you have any questions, those are inside of the guidelines as well, which I will drop into the chat momentarily.
Fantastic. Okay. So back to the guidelines, again, 4 focus areas, and there are examples and inspiration. I won't go through all the examples rather, and the inspiration, but they are there to give you examples of projects that were uplifted directly from artists at our listening sessions. And so the follow examples are only an introduction to creative ways to engage these topics. And we invite you to craft projects that push the boundaries of civically and socially engaged art projects. And we encourage you to think broadly about how artists might become more integrated into community-based work long after the grant has ended. Okay? And so for example, they give you the environmental related issues, they give you some examples. And I believe these are links that you can, yes, you can on your end, when you pull up the guidelines, you'll be able to touch control and then click on it, and it should open a web page for you. Okay, so there's an example of environmental related issues, civic engagement and voter participation, social injustice and community engagement, public health, and pandemic recovery. Okay. And then the grant categories and amounts, there is 2.4 million is available to grant to nonprofits, nonprofit agencies, and agencies who will employ artists and culture bearers. You can apply from a minimum of $25,000 to $150,000. 80% of those funds must be used to hire artists and or culture bearers. No more than 20% of the funds may be used for admin and program expenses, which are supplies. And so if you are not sure if your admin expense is allowable, again, contact Kristen, and she will answer that question for you. A nonprofit agency should apply with a lead artist or group of artists in mind, but the nonprofit must submit the application, not the artist. And then a nonprofit or agency does not need to have the artist identified at the time of the application, but a clear timeline and equitable process for identifying the artist must be included in the application. I recommend applicants under this category attend the workshop, How to Work with Artists. Special pacing and support will apply to applicants of this nature and will receive mentoring from the staff. Artists can only be funded or hired through one application. They may be included in multiple applications, but may only be paid through one project application. So if all the nonprofits have their favorite artists and you put them on the all of your applications, I'm sure that the artists will appreciate that, but that person or group of persons can only be funded through one application. Okay. 1.4 million is available to grant to individuals and culture bearers. So individual artists and culture bearers, them, you can apply independently. That's one person applying, and the amount is minimum $10,000 to $50,000. If you apply collectively as a smaller group, 3 or more artists, creatives, or culture bearers working together with no affiliation, just a group of people who just want to work together with no affiliation to a 501c3 or fiscal sponsorship, your minimum is 50,000 and the maximum is 100,000. And then you must identify one person or one lead individual to apply. No more than 20% of the funds for collectives rather, this is for collectives and individuals, correct, Kristen? No more than 20% of funds may be used for program expenses?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And that's, for an example, travel supplies. And then artists can only be funded or hired through one application. In other words, if you put in multiple applications, only one application will be considered. And again, they may be included in multiple applications, but may be paid through only one project application. Okay. And then here's a list of things we do not fund. Let's see. Kristen, I don't see the list of what we do not fund. Oh, see attachment, okay. But what we do not fund is also on the Inland Empire Community Foundation page. They have a whole list of things and a section dedicated to what we do not fund. Okay. Here is your timeline. And the timeline is November, we passed November, December 22, which was the information sessions, and January through February, the regional listing sessions that I just talked about with the inspiration. Then February through March, we have the program team design, the co-design, the RFP. March 16th, the RFP came out. And then now April, today is April 4th, we're doing a technical assistance. And then in the future, in about 3 weeks or almost a month, May 1st is application submission deadline, okay? A week of June 5th is the decision-making meeting. And then June 15th, the grant awards are announced. July 1st to 2023 to June 30th, 2024 is your grants performance period. You are funded, you have a performance period, which that is a year to perform, to spend your money, and to do everything you said you would do in the grant. And then July 2024 to September 15th, the culmination of events, activities, and final reports. Okay. So Kristen, do we know what the final report will be asking yet? Do we know that?
No, we do not know that yet.
Kristen? Okay, all right then, very good. So when that comes out, I want everyone to make sure you read the expectations because when you write your grant, you are awarded the grant based on what you're planning to do or what you said you're going to do. And your final report will be in line with that. There's the reporting is going to ask you questions about, your activities, things like that. So make sure that you don't put anything in your grant that you cannot do. And then if you have to talk to someone about that, about performance during the grant, then make sure that you get together with your representative, talk with them, and see, talk with them about performance issues if you have any, right? And please, when you're performing your grant or whether you're writing your grant, please do not assume anything. Ask questions, look up your research, but you don't want to be stuck where you assume something and then it was definitely wrong. It will affect your performance. And then again, here we are on the workshops and technical assistance. After budgeting for large grants, working with artists, accessibility considerations, and then of course there's virtual office hours, and support and technical assistance. And then it tells here who will be on board for that particular one. Networking, support. So there's lots of networking, lots of support, so that you don't feel like you're alone in this and that you don't have to guess about anything. This is designed, all this help here is designed to support you. All right. Okay. So now we are going to go into, is everybody okay? Does everybody need to go and get a drink of water or anything like that? Kristen, do we need to take like a 2-minute break?
Nope, it looks like everybody wants to keep going.
Okay, that's a good group. Yay. Okay, all right, good. All righty. So let me go to my folder here, and I'm going to start on the individual grant here. All right, then I have to share so you can see it. Okay, Kristen, can you see my individual application?
I can, yes.
You can? Okay, good. All right, very good. Okay. So again, I'm not going to tell you what to say, but I will go over some of the questions so that you will not be surprised. So we're going over the individual artist or the artist cohort application, which the cohort is 3 or more individuals that are not affiliated with a fiscal sponsor or a nonprofit. Okay. Again, right at the beginning of the application, the application is online. Let me see if I can get in there. There it is right here. Okay, so this is what the online application looks like. Okay, and again, when I said in the beginning, I went up to the questions list at the top right-hand corner and downloaded the PDF, and that's what I'll be going over. But just to show you, it's the same exact thing. Okay, the questions list starts out with the individual artist name and so forth and so on. So let me switch back over to my PDF, which is a better read. Okay, all right. Again, Kristen, I'm checking to make sure you see the individual PDF.
I do, yes.
Okay, all right. So right at the top of the online or the PDF, okay, it says the same thing, and that is that it repeats some very important things. It wants you to provide the following information by answering all questions and type the questions, of course. So you will not be using the PDF to answer anything. You will be inserting everything online. As a grant writer, this is where I put on my grant writer hat here. As a grant writer, sometimes I will print out a PDF and scratch the questions out or circle things or highlight things to the side, and then, or, I'll put a question mark, or maybe I need a friend's help or something like that. then you write your notes out on, that's why you would use a PDF, okay? But anyway, we're gonna type the questions into the grant portal and then type your complete answers to the question directly below the question. Please be thorough, clear, specific, and concise. So this is where they have another note here on that. Let's see here. So I want to stress that to make sure that you are explaining your projects well enough that anyone could imagine what you're proposing. All right. So some of the people who may be on the grant panel may not be artists. So we want to make sure anyone who picks up the grant application knows what you're trying to convey. So what I do is sometimes I send my grant to a friend and they'll be honest with me. I don't know. I don't understand a thing you're saying. Okay. All right. That means I have not done a very good job. All right. Or they'll read it and they'll say, oh, perfectly understand that. Okay. And sometimes I give it to people who don't know the industry that I'm writing for. And if you can give your grant application to a non-artist, someone who maybe is mechanically inclined, I'm just joking. Okay. All right. And if they can understand what you're trying to do and convey, then you've done a good job. All right. So back to the guidelines. Okay. Just remember that if you're applying independently, the minimum is 10,000 and the maximum is 50,000. And if you're applying collectively as a smaller group, 3 or more artists, then the minimum is 50,000 and the maximum is 100,000. And you must identify one lead individual to apply. And all the artists must reside in the Inland Empire, which I'm assuming that's San Bernardino and Riverside counties. Is that correct, Kristen?
That is correct. So we've had people ask before if they reside here, but they want to use a screenwriter or a composer or somebody from outside of the area, the grant will not fund that. The artist and the organization have to reside within Riverside or San Bernardino counties.
Okay, very good. Very good. Okay. And no more than 20% of funds may be used for program expenses. Requests over maximum amounts will be disqualified. So another question for me, if I apply for $150,000, okay, and I didn't read the instructions, will you reset the max to 100 or just throw my application out or disqualify it? That's a question for Kristen.
I apologize. Can you please repeat that?
Oh, that's okay. No, I just wanted a little bit more understanding here. Let's say I make a mistake and I didn't read the instructions and I asked for $150,000. Will my application be disqualified or will you just reset it to 100,000?
We would probably contact the applicant and clarify what they meant. And then discuss it that way. I don't see us just looking at it and saying, never mind, because we realize that typos happen. So we'd probably reach out just to double check.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you. All righty. And then on the online site, this would be a link here and it's pointing me also if I clicked it to the guidelines we just went over. So the asterisks are areas that are required to be filled out. And then also remember there are character limits. So make sure that you do not exceed the character limits or what you say will be cut off. The artist's name, your social media handle, the program grant information, and on the online, it gives you the 4 choices that were all important, which is civic engagement, environment, public health, or social justice. Okay. Your project name, the amount requested, and your project budget. Okay. Now for individuals and the cohorts, your project budget is will look like, let me see here, I can bring that up. Okay, all right, can you see my project budget?
Yes, I can.
Okay. The project budget will look like this. If you're an individual and you don't have the link for it, a project budget is really simple. When you say how much you are going to, or how much you're requesting, you've got to say what you're going to do with it. Okay, and that is your project budget. And this form is the same for nonprofits also. Okay. So again, it restates all the rules for nonprofits and for individuals, okay? And then it has what we call a line item category. Some people like to do, a bigger looking budget, but it just gives you an example, okay? You have a line item category, which you state on each line, you will be stating what you're going to be needing the money for, okay? And the totals, I'm sorry, this is the money one. Okay, the line item category where it says total should have the money, and the total should add up to what you're asking for. The line item description, and then the amount requested from Inland Empire Community Foundation. Okay, and what you the line item category and the amount requested from IECF can be the same, okay? In other words, if you, some people are just asking for a portion of their budget, perhaps they have a budget of 100,000, but from this IECF, rather, they only want 50,000, okay? And so your whole budget would be listed, what the description of for each amount, and then how much you're asking for from Inland Empire Community Foundation. If it's the same and you want them to fund the whole budget, then it's the same, okay? And then your budget narrative, okay? Your personnel, of course, artists, 80% of it can be the 80% of the amount requested, okay? If this is important now, if you have identified the artists or culture bearers that you will hire, this is for nonprofits, list their names here, include a short bio on each one, or resumes. Resumes are optional, but a short bio is good. If you have not identified the artist, explain where you are in the process and indicate how many artists or culture bearers you will be hiring, okay? And then here for program and administrative costs, explain the line item costs and expenses, okay? So remember I told you not to assume anything. So you don't want to leave the grant reviewers to assume anything either. So take the time to explain your line items. Okay, here you have the category, then you have the description and the requested amount, but then now they're giving you a chance to explain it. I'm sorry, explain it here, okay? All right, so let's go back to question list here. This is for individuals. So we have the project budget, and of course, it can be the same amount as requested from Inland Empire Community Foundation. Purpose of the grant. This is extremely important because it should align with the guidelines, all right? So let me switch back over to the guidelines, because if you don't do this right, again, I can't tell you what to say, but your grantors have already told you what the purpose is, okay? Your purpose would be found in the background and here under the Creative Corps Inland SoCal information, including some of the goals, okay? All right. Questions list, sorry. Okay, all right. So then we go into the artist background and capacity and readiness, 500 max words. Now, I really want you to pay attention to this, okay? Because a lot of people look at this, they read over it, and then they decide what part of the question they want to answer, okay? So in 1A, all right, it is a multiple questions. And so if you have to take a little pencil or pen or something and then write out how many parts to this question, because you need to answer all the questions, all parts of the question. So in A, you need to describe your artist cultural practice, philosophy, and creative processes. How long have you been practicing your art? Describe 2 projects you have accomplished in the last 3 years. If you practice traditional or folk art, discuss your traditional practice and the creation of new work in that cultural context. So already there's 6 parts. I could have counted 7 maybe. Okay, all right. But it is a common mistake in grant writing that people just read maybe the first part and the last part. And, okay, and then they answer that. I got it down. Okay, then they go on to the next one. Okay. And it is up to the discretion of the grant reviewers to review this. There is a weight. I don't know the weight, but there is a weight assigned to each section or each area or each answer. And if your reviewer is not getting what they need out of the answer, then naturally they feel like it has not been sufficiently answered and they cannot make a decision, okay? So you don't have to, we only have 500 words, okay, for this, let me see, 500 words max, character limit 3,500, all right? So choose your words wisely, but answer as best as you can. In my classes, people don't have to write long papers to get to the point. Some of my students, they have very short to the point, and some feel like they're not delivered until they write it out way, a lot of stuff, okay? As long as they stay within the minimum, I'm good with that. I'm not a reviewer, but I'm just telling you not to skip everything they're asking, because there's, reasons they have to make decisions based on what you're saying, okay? And then, so that's just an example. And then there's B. B has several questions in it, okay? Then we go to subregions, where you need to identify the communities you are currently working in or have worked in, and indicate the subregions in Riverside or San Bernardino County, okay? And there's a lot of them. And then they give you the choices. You can click them, so forth and so on, okay? Then you have narrative questions. Again, for the individual artist, this is health equity. And then for an example, for A, it does ask you, where's your target HPI? That is the lowest quartile. What are the zip codes of your target HPI community? Okay. And then it asks you either, well, B is a single question. Oh no, that's 2. Okay, all right. And how are you developing? So watch all of those and make sure that you are answering all of those, and make sure that you are staying within the character limit and that you have answered sufficiently. Okay. The next section is program design. Okay. It goes on to ask you what you're proposing to do and what issues you're going to address. And again, those it repeats the 4 areas that are of interest to all of the partners who are giving out this grant. Okay. And then it goes on to A, B, C, and D. Okay. And then artist, cultural, and creative disciplines. We talked about that. What is your discipline? It also talks about accessibility, describing how the public components of your project will be accessible to individuals. It's a multi-part question. And then explaining how your workshops, digital, physical work production, and distribution of components will ensure that your project is accessible to all audiences. Okay. And then it asks another question at the end. Considering physical spaces you will use, will consider physical spaces you will use. Language barriers, transportation. It's not a question. It's asking you to consider these things. Okay. And digital access in your response. For the individuals, you are required to upload letters of recommendation from community partners. 1 for individuals applying solo, 2 for individuals applying on behalf of a collective. You are required to upload your artistic work, past or relevant work samples, at least 1 for individuals applying solo and 2 for individuals applying on behalf of the collective. And then upload your project budget and narrative. And then for those of you who are working as a collective, you do have to have an agreement between all of you. And so for the collective applicant, an MOU or collective agreement signed by all artists working on the project. So the MOUs can be found widely on the internet. I always go for the MOUs can be quite lengthy, but just something simple where there's an agreement between you all and an understanding. The understanding that falls within the guidelines of this grant. Okay. And then of course there's a question email. Okay. And then all of these applicants will be notified of the results in writing by June 15th. Please do not contact Inland Empire Community Foundation before this date once the application has been submitted. All right. Okay. So that's for individuals. Okay. I am going to go into the portal now and then download the one for the nonprofits. It's slightly different. All righty. Kristen, can you see my organization application?
I can.
Okay. All right. Are we good on time?
Yes, we are.
All right. We're almost done. So for the nonprofits, at the top, they have repeated the minimum and maximum requests, and that the rules of the 80% of the funds must be used to hire artists, and no more than 20% of the funds must be used for admin and program expenses. And then also for the nonprofits, please note that artists must reside in the Inland Empire. And then that is also talked about in the full guidelines and instructions, which we just went over. For the application, you must give your organization name, your social media handles, the program grant information, which are the 4 interests of your funders. Check all that apply, your interest areas, your project name, the amount requested, and then your project budget, I did show you a template you can use, but if you are familiar on project budgets and narratives, please make them as simple as possible. And then for uploading, I'm assuming that you can upload them in PDF, but just make sure that it is easy to read, and that the narrative, make sure that the narrative coincides with the budget in order. So if you list, supplies at the top of your project budget for expenses, then a narrative should have supplies at the top. Okay. Try to make it as easy to read for the reviewer so that they don't have to be searching all over, like the supplies there and supplies here. Where is that? Where's that? Okay, you don't want to do that. Okay. All right. And so I'm talking from experience as a grant writer and a reviewer. Once you become a reviewer, then you just, hide your head for all the mistakes that you made reviewers go through. Okay. All right. So, but anyway, okay. So then we have the grant purpose. And again, I went back to the guidelines to make sure that you saw the purpose of the grant and how it should be aligning with your grant too. Okay. Then we go into the narrative questions, the organization background, capacity, and readiness. When you come into this part, okay, again, we have multiple parts to each question, okay? Describes the organization history and experience working with artists or nonprofit arts, culture, and culture organizations in your community within the past 3 years. Now, it does not say describe your organization's history. It just wants the history and experience working with the artists, okay? If it is a very long history, then you certainly want to stay within the 500 words max. But if you started out, if your organization started out in 1950, okay, then you don't want to waste time bringing this up to 2023. However, you certainly can indicate that our organization's history goes back to that time, okay, and then just bringing this up to speed, all right? And then they also want you to include activities, accomplishments, and list partner organizations and or artists and culture bearers, right? And then B is self-explanatory. Identify the communities you're currently serving, including populations, geographic locations served, and relevant statistics. So you're going to have to dig a little bit if you don't have that information readily at hand. Okay. Then you're going to indicate your subregions, and I believe these are just check boxes. You're going to answer 2, which is health equity. Target populations on the Healthy Places Index, 500. And pretty much it's the same as the individual. What is your target HPI community, cities, cities, towns, etc., that is in the lowest quartile? What are the zip codes and so forth and so on? And then what are the community needs being addressed, and how are you elevating communities residing within the lowest quartile? Then C talks about those relationships, and then describing the ways in which you plan to reach the audiences and or communities that are identified in the California Healthy Places Index as first quartile, right? So I always insert this, that social media is good for reaching out, but I always tell everyone that I would not just say post, okay? But you really gotta have existing relationship and just how are you gonna reach it, how are you gonna go deeper, okay? Because your post is just subject to what they call, whatever they call algorithms, Okay, all right. And so, so when you plan to say how you're going to reach them, think of like multiple ways you're going to reach them and go deep with them. All right. So, all right. With the program design, it's 1,000 words max. And again, multiple parts to the question. What are you proposing to do and what issues you're going to address? And every grant reviewer looks at this because this is what you say you're going to do. Okay. And during your performance, this is what everyone's looking for you to do because you said you would do it. Okay. And then if there's a problem with your performance, then you would contact the Inland SoCal Arts and Kristen and let them know right away. Because there are glitches. Sometimes we all suffer glitches in our performance when it comes to these grants. And so let your funder know immediately and discuss it with them. Okay. And describe your plan to engage local artists, cultural practitioners, and groups in creating new work. Now that has come up over and over again, new work for the individuals and for the nonprofits in your specific areas. New audiences, a new work, and participants, including those in the communities of color, low-income communities, LGBTQIA, disabled communities, and other communities that experience barriers to arts participation. Please provide a detailed timeline of your proposed project and related activities. And then here's one thing that nonprofits should always do is you should always figure out a way to know if your project is successful and what are the expected outcomes and community impact. Will expected outcomes and community impact likely lead to greater public understanding or action? If yes, how? So one of the things that that I taught about is surveys. Okay, that's just one of them. But you can Google how to know if your project is successful and some of the ways to figure it out along the way. Don't wait till the end, but figure out within your timeline how to know your project is successful along the way. And from the feedback you get, not only from surveys, but from the feedback you get, whatever system that you set up, then you'll be able to do little tweaks. That's not working. This is not working. This is working. Let's go with that. Things like that. Okay. Accessibility, you need to describe how your project is going to be accessible to the population, the disabled population that we talked about, okay? And also how all of your tools will be accessible to all audiences. And again, for the nonprofits, consider physical spaces. You will be using language barriers, transportation, and digital access in your response. And then for the required documents, you do need to upload your federal IRS determination letter. The Inland Empire Community Foundation will not accept a state letter. If you don't have a copy of it, if you're the grant writer and you don't have a copy of it, you can go to the IRS search site and you can input the name or the employer identification number. It gives you several ways, the state or the address, and you can download a free copy because it is a public document. You will have to submit your project budget page and your budget narrative. And then for nonprofits, you do have to submit your 2023 operating budget. So there is a difference between your project budget and your operating budget. Your project budget is just for this project. Your operating budget is the budget that you and your staff or your board members got together and you said, okay, this is the budget for 2023. These would not be your your actual expenses like a profit and loss unless the community foundation or all the partners ask for it. But this is the budget that you created probably back in 2022, saying, okay, this is our goal for income, and this is our goal for expenses for the 2023 year. Okay. And then fiscal sponsorship, if applicable. If you are working with a fiscal sponsor, a letter of agreement between the fiscal sponsor and the applicant organization must be signed by a representative from both parties and submitted with the application. And if the grant is awarded, the fiscal sponsor becomes the legal contract holder with Inland Empire Community Foundation. And of course, questions can be emailed to creativeye@iegives.org. And all applicants will be notified of the results in writing by June 15, 2023. Okay. So that concludes what I have to say. Kristen, is there anything that I missed that I need to go over?
No, I think you covered it all really well. I've been working in the chat to answer questions as we went along, of course. I also dropped in the chat what we do not fund.
Good.
So if you're ready, I dropped in what we do not fund, as well as the updated project budget and narrative in case anyone needs it.
Okay.
So unless you had anything else to say, I can jump into the what we do not fund part.
Please.
Okay. And I will put myself back on camera.
All righty. Do I need to stop share?
Sure. Yeah, that would be helpful. Okay. Hi again, everyone. Okay. So things that are not funded, state agencies, federal agencies, nonprofit organizations that are not in good standing with the state of California, former grantee organizations not in compliance with California Arts Council grant requirements, such as failing to submit a final report. Now, California Arts Council is different than California Desert Arts Council. So you want to remember that if you have gotten a grant with California Arts Council previously and have not submitted final reports, that will make a difference. Expenses incurred before the start date or after the ending date of the grant activity period. So we won't reimburse you if you've already been working on something. We won't reimburse you for funds that you've already spent on it. It has to be spent during the grant period and during the award period. Any operational, administrative, or indirect costs of schools, colleges, or universities. No fundraising activities or services such as grant writing, annual campaigns, or fundraising events will be funded. We can't fund lobbying activities that are intended to influence the actions, policies, or decisions of government officials or specific legislation. Programs or services intended for private use or for use by restricted membership. That includes programs that require college or university enrollment for participation. This needs to be accessible to everyone. And remember, accessibility is a big part of this grant. No projects with religious purposes will be funded. Anything, we will not fund trusts, endowment funds, or investments. Any construction projects, purchase of land and buildings, or capital expenditures used to maintain, upgrade, acquire, or repair capital assets. Now, when we say construction projects, that does not mean set design. So if you're in a theater company and you're like, oh no, I'm constructing this thing, they're not going to fund it. That's not what we mean. We mean full on, we're building a building, and we're looking for capital contributions in order to pay for it. That will not get funded. Any equipment purchases, but equipment rentals are eligible. Any kind of debt repayment will not cannot be used for this funding. Any hospitality expenses, and this is important, any meals or food. So if you have staff that you're bringing in, if you are having meetings, if you are having rehearsals or anything like that, and you have food as part of it, you cannot expense your food to this grant because it is federal, it's state funding. So a lot of grants that come from federal or state funding, food is something that will not be reimbursed. Also, out-of-state travel will not be reimbursed. So if you wanted to travel out of state to do some research for a project that you want to have funded, that will not be funded as well. I popped that into the chat, but we will also make sure that that is prominent on our website and update our, it is in the grant portal. I will say that if you get into the grant portal, it will show an area, it's WWDF, what we do not fund. I think the N is missing from there. But we want to make sure that you're aware of what won't be funded within it. And usually food is one of the issues. So let me go through what we have here. Patricia, hope that helped. Individual artists can be an LLC. Michael, I believe so. I just need to check on that. Artists, LLC. I know that you don't have to be a business in order to be funded, because you'll need, especially for the individuals who are working with a nonprofit. I know that there was a question about whether they're an employee or whether they're a contractor, and they would be a contractor under this grant. So construction can be a temporary shelter as part of a social practice project. We'd have to talk a little bit more about exactly what you mean. And these are questions that are great, as Janai had mentioned, to ask prior to. So I'm glad these are coming up now. I would have to talk with you a little bit more about that. So make sure that you send me an email. I'm going to pop my my email under your question so that you can send me an email so that we can discuss that a little bit further. For the project budget and narrative, we can have format resumes directly into the document as a multiple PDF. Yes, you can put, you can upload documents directly onto the portal website. Someone had also asked whether or not it would be easier in the narrative when there are so many questions, and especially with a word limit, whether you should have bullet points or whether you should have a narrative. And Janai, I'm going to have you jump in here, but I remember from taking your class that one of the things that that you want to make sure that you do is write out for each point what your answer would be, to make sure that you've hit all of them, and then kind of look at your formatting. Does it read better as a full narrative? Do you have enough words for it? Or are you clearer as having it in bullet points? Would that make sense, Janai?
Absolutely. Just
Okay.
make sure that, thank you. Just make sure that the bullet points, the bullet points are going to take up some of your required characters. And so, if you, and then also sometimes if you separate, it takes up required characters, so just make sure that that it's easy to read. If you can include the bullet points in there, fine, but I don't know if the application has somewhere where you can do that, or if you can copy and paste them. I don't know, the online, but however you make it to be easy to read is good.
Thank you. Anthony, a general question, any office hours for people who have questions like one-on-ones? Yes, so I just dropped into the chat the guidelines and instructions. Towards the bottom of that, you'll see different points of registration. for virtual mixers, virtual networking, as well as office hours. So each council has a different day of the week all through April. My days are Wednesdays starting next week. Generally, the hours are from 12 to 1:30 or yes, 12 to 1:30. And you'll just be able to log into the Zoom. We'll be on there and you can ask your questions and you can come back as many times as you need to. We want to make sure that you get the answers that you need. And we have not yet had all of our mixers. So make sure you keep an eye on the website as well. I know for the desert, we have ours coming up in Palm Desert on Thursday at Create Center for the Arts. There will also be one in Blythe on Monday. I know that Needles has one. There's another one in San Bernardino. So there's many in-person mixers that are happening. We're trying to really make sure that this all happens with enough time for you all to meet that May 1st deadline. Carolyn, for the artistic work, it looks like the max size is 1 megabyte. Which would make it hard to upload sound or video. Is there an option to include links to audio visual samples in a PDF? Yes, actually, that would be a really great alternative to doing that. If for some reason you're having any trouble with that or it's not uploading in the way you would like, please just reach out to us and we'll make sure that we're able to get that from you in the way that we need to. That'll give us the best idea of your work. And Dominic is correct. We will be looking at social media. So if you have, if you use your social media as a portfolio, which I would highly suggest for artists to do, then yes, we'll be able to do that as well. Would we be allowed to use personal funds to feed volunteers or hire a photographer to document the project? You can use your own personal funds for whatever you would like. You just wouldn't be able to use funds from the grant to feed volunteers. And hiring a photographer to document the project, yes, you can. I'm just not sure. We'd have to look at how that would go into, if that would go into hiring an additional artist with your project, or if that would go into your 20% of admin budget. As I'm saying that, it feels like it would be hiring a second artist. So I think that would be allowable, but let's discuss further offline. And if you haven't been able to, I'll just drop my email again so that you have it. The email that went out with Zoom is a personal email address, which I do check, but it just you may not get the answers quickly enough because while I've been in the pandemic with Zoom and all of you as well, there are still technicalities that I am learning as we go. Is there anybody that wants to ask their question through audio? Please feel free to raise your electronic hand. You don't have to come on camera if you don't want to, but I also wanted to leave that option as well. Jacqueline, go ahead.
Hi, so I had asked earlier in the chat about hiring artists that do not reside in the county. So for example, we do a lot of musical programming and especially with the concept that artists can't be hired by multiple grantees. So can you just explain a little bit more about that?
Sure. So hold on one second. I'm just typing a date. Yes. So when the grant was distributed, so California Arts Council received $60 million from the state. in order to produce this pilot workforce program called Creative Corps. There are 8 different sections of California who have received money. Our particular section is Riverside and San Bernardino counties. So the money that we get needs to be spent with artists who are within our counties. Artists outside of our counties have money in their counties to be spent with their groups, nonprofits, and organizations. So that's the reason why we can't hire outside artists. It's to be used to uplift and fund under-resourced, underserved communities and artists who reside in those communities.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And that's one of the reasons we'll be having these mixers. And we're building an artist roster of different disciplines so that people do have the ability to find artists that they might not have known about previously. And while we are going to be having those mixers and such, we won't be specifically matching artists with organizations. You'll have to do that. I do want to be aware of time at 6:37. We are continuing to record this. I want to make sure that I get everybody's answers, everybody's questions answered. But if you do need to drop off, we will still be recording this as we go on. And then it will be uploaded to our site within the next day or so. The artist roster, I can get you that information. Once again, I will just drop my email in the chat so that I can get that information to you. I would get it right now, but doing too many things at once. So Patricia, if you could just email me, I'd be happy to get that over to you. Dominic, go ahead. Oh, I cannot hear you. No.
Any luck?
There we go.
Apologies. Sorry,
That's
I took
okay.
my headphones off. I took down a note that the project budget and the project narrative, and then budget narrative should match, that Janae recommended. And I just wanted to confirm, so that's the line item category list would then kind of be the outline for the 2-part question. I guess I was having a hard time connecting how they would work because the budget narrative asks for like resumes and things like that.
Yes, when you list your budget, okay, let's just talk about the narrative, the budget narrative. When you list your budget, then you're going to talk about your line items. Okay, you're going to explain them. So that would be just the narrative. So I said that, for example, if you're going to list, if you're going to have a list of things that you're going to spend the money on, then you should be in your narrative. You should be talking about, let's say, supplies. If you're an individual and you're going for the 10,000 or more, then if you're going to be spending 2,000 on supplies, and you just say supplies, then it would be nice if you talked about what supplies. Okay, it's just a description. Okay, the resumes and all that stuff. I think to go back to the individual. Oh, that's the budget. Okay, let's see. On the individual, just gonna look up right here real quick.
Yeah, from what we were shared, it looks like the project budget PD or Word doc that was sent. It's
Mhm.
identical for orgs and individuals. So
Okay, good.
Um,
Okay, all right, good,
yeah.
good. So for the individuals, the required documents are the letters of recommendation, your artistic work, your project work, for the collective, all that, plus an MOU. And then let me see what they have in the budget here. Oh, and then for the budget narrative, for the artist, okay, list of names and then include a short bio on each one or resume. So like the person that spoke before, you can list a short bio in the budget narrative, or you can merge the document with a resume if you want to use the resume.
And I'll also note with that, if you're coming at this from an organization standpoint, you do not need to know exactly who the artist is that you're going to work with at the time of your application. So if you apply and you're like, I just don't have enough time to find the exact artist I'm looking for, that's okay. We just at some point will be asking for that. And if you don't get one within a certain period of time, yet to be determined, then we may disqualify your grant. How about any other questions? I know Anthony, I believe, had their hand up.
Yeah, hello everyone. Yeah, I guess this is just a question because so I'm a community journalist. I cover environmental justice and health disparities in the Inland Empire. And so would I be considered an artist if I were to apply for like a project that focuses on using photography and like photojournalism, for example? You know, is that something that would be funded as like an individual artist? You know, yeah, I think that's just my question, because I know this is, yeah, I'm just trying to get clarity on what you all consider an artist and that type of stuff, right?
Yeah, and go ahead.
I was going to ask you, Kristen, if I could answer that. Anthony, if you go back to the guidelines page, where you under the second paragraph where it starts, it says Creative Corps Inland SoCal. Okay, it does. It gives you the categories. So you have to ask yourself, am I working in the category of public health awareness and pandemic recovery? Am I working in the category of public awareness of environmental related issues, such as water and energy, conservation, climate mitigation, emergency preparedness, relief, and recovery? Am I working in civic engagement and voter participation? Or am I working in the category of social justice and community engagement? So you have to ask yourself, in which one of these four categories do I fit when I am doing my reporting? And then Kirsten can speak to the work, because you're going to have to upload a work, art, okay, which is photography or whatever, but she can speak to the rest of that. I just wanted to draw you back to the goals and what's supposed to happen with the grant.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I actually see it now, and reading that, I think I do definitely. So I appreciate you answering that question. Yeah.
Yeah, it certainly does sound like you would fit. And it is okay if you if you find that social justice and environmental issues kind of collide with what you're doing. That is perfectly okay as well. Just outline that in the grant. We just want to make sure that we're seeing where you're coming from and where your point of view is as you take on these projects. Carolyn, wondering, is there a percentage range or limit for the amount that individuals should pay themselves? I would say, I think you're asking this as an artist. Absolutely pay yourself. Okay, yes, you are an artist. We can probably talk about this a little bit deeper offline, but part of this is making sure that we're looking at sustainability in the art world and trying to end that stigma of the starving artist. So that's why only 20% of the amount that is asked for in the grant is used for supplies and admin, because we really want to make sure that we're hiring the artists who are going to do the work and be fairly compensated. So there are different ways that you can look up information as to how much artists are getting paid, or how much people in your field are getting paid or should be getting paid for these things. And I can help you offline as well. Any of the councils can help you offline with trying to figure that out a little bit more, because I know that can be a little daunting, especially if people have had a habit of talking you out of a lot of money in the past. Yes, you're welcome. Yes, please contact me and we'll work together to help you figure that out. How many reviewers are on the panel and where are you finding them? So we, Inland Empire Community Foundation is working on that. I can give you their email address so that they can answer that question a little more formally for you. The councils as a whole, because we are doing so much work working with specific organizations and individuals, we are not reviewers. We will be part of panel discussions, but we will not be voting on these discussions. So give me one moment and I will pull up that email address for you so that you have it at your disposal sooner than later. creative.ie@iegives.org. There you go. Any other questions that we can help you with at the moment? You're welcome. Okay. Are there any more questions for Janai as she has to head out and prep for another Zoom meeting? No, it looks like there isn't. Janai, thank you so much for being here with us and for helping us all with this. I really appreciate having you. You've done
Thank
a great
you so
job.
much. It has been a pleasure. So, all right, I will leave the meeting and leave the rest of it up to you. Thank you.
All
Kristen.
right. Thank you, Janai. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay. Dominic, we are considering hiring an artist project lead and then additional artists below that person. Assuming the budget will clarify work roles and compensation, does this fit the purpose of the grant? Yes.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that tiered structure is something that feels right. This is something we've just been talking about at our office, and because when does it become administrative costs is the question versus like somebody doing creative work during the project. So that's where I'm at with all that.
Yeah, I mean, if we could definitely talk about it a little bit more, but my initial reaction to it is that it goes to the artist side, because you would have, it's not like you have a grant administrator who's overseeing all of the artists, right? So that grant administrator would be on the admin side, but if you have an artist who's running a group of artists to make sure that the work gets done, I feel like that is an artist payroll, not project.
Yeah, it's the program expenses thing that's like, where does that fall? So thank you. That's great.
Yeah, and if you have any, if you write that up a little bit and just email it to me, I'll check with the other, I'll check and make sure that I'm telling you the correct information. just so that before you get to the point where you're applying. Any other questions before we let everybody go for the evening?
This is Dina. I had one more question in reference to producing a documentary. Would we also be able to use the producer's fees on the side of the artist, not the program side? Somebody that's got to wrangle everybody and make this happen?
Again, it sounds like you probably could, but let's talk more specifically via email. Or even by phone, so that I can make sure that I'm getting your question answered correctly.
Okay.
Do you have were you able to grab my email in the chat?
Yep, I sure did.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay, we'll wrap it up then. I want to thank Mariela Trujillo for being our Spanish translator today. We will have this recorded. The Spanish translation will also be recorded, so you'll have access to both of those. And then we are working on also getting this recording interpreted through sign language so that it's accessible for everyone. You can always reach out to me. My email is in the chat. It is on our website. And I just thank you all for being here tonight. We're really excited to get this grant out to everybody and put artists to work within our community. So thank you all for being here. Have a wonderful night.